Imagine you're alone, high on a desolate mountain path. The mist rolls in, thick and silent, swallowing the world around you. Your only companions are the sound of your own breathing and the crunch of your boots on the gravel. But then, you hear it. Another set of footsteps, heavy and slow, echoing your own. You stop. The footsteps continue for a moment, then fall silent. You're sure you're alone, but the feeling of being watched, of a tall shadow, just at the edge of your vision, is overwhelming. For over a century, climbers on the UK's second highest mountain have told this exact same terrifying story, a story of the Grey Man of Ben Macdui. In the heart of the Scottish Highlands lies the Cairngorms, a vast Arctic wilderness of windswept peaks. Towering above them all is Ben Macdui, the second highest mountain in the entire British Isles. At 1,309 metres, it's a place of stark, unforgiving beauty, often battered by brutal winds and smothered in a thick, disorienting fog. But it's not just the weather climbers need to be wary of. For generations, this mountain has been home to a chilling legend, a story whispered from one person to the next. It's the legend of Fear Liath Mòr, a Gaelic name that translates to the Big Grey Man. This isn't a story of a gentle giant or a simple mountain spirit. The tales describe a presence that inspires a unique and potent kind of terror. Encounters are marked by an overwhelming sense of dread, the unnerving sound of unseen footsteps, and, in rare cases, the fleeting sight of a tall, shadowy figure moving through the mist. The legend is deeply woven into the fabric of Scottish folklore, a chilling reminder that even in the most remote corners of the world, you might not be as alone as you think. So, is it just a story, or is there something more to the tales from Ben Macdui? For many years, the Grey Man was a creature of local folklore, a bogeyman for shepherds. That all changed in 1925, when one of the most respected men in Britain stood before the Cairngorm Club and shared a story that gave the legend chilling credibility. That man was Professor J. Norman Collie. Now, Collie was not a man prone to wild tales. He was a distinguished scientist, a professor of organic chemistry, a fellow of the Royal Society, and the man behind the first ever medical X-ray photograph. He was also a world-renowned mountaineer. His words carried weight. He told everyone about an experience he'd had way back in 1891 while coming down from the summit of Ben Macdui alone. "I was returning from the cairn on the summit in a mist," he began. "When I began to think, I heard something else than merely the noise of my own footsteps." He described hearing a crunching sound every few steps he took, but it wasn't his. It sounded like someone was following him, but taking steps that were 3 or 4 times the length of his own. At first he brushed it off. He stopped, listened, and heard nothing. He looked back into the dense fog and saw nothing. But as he walked on, the eerie crunching returned, and it felt like it was getting closer. An unexplainable terror seized him. He wrote, "I was seized with terror and took to my heels, staggering blindly among the boulders for 4 or 5 miles. He fled the mountain, vowing never to return to the top alone." Collie finished his speech with a haunting statement. "Whatever you make of it, I do not know, but there is something very queer about the top of Ben Macdui." Professor Collie's public confession opened the floodgates. His flawless reputation gave others the courage to share their own unsettling experiences. Suddenly, it was clear his encounter wasn't a one-off. More reports surfaced, many from seasoned climbers who knew the mountain inside and out. And as the stories piled up, a disturbing pattern emerged. In 1943, during World War II, naturalist and mountaineer Alexander Tunian was on Ben Macdui. As mist enveloped the peak, he heard an odd sound and felt an oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly, a strange shape loomed out of the fog and charged at him. In a moment of pure panic, Tunian pulled out a revolver and fired 3 times at the figure. When it kept coming, he turned and fled down the mountain in terror. Just 2 years later, in 1945, Peter Densham, who was part of a wartime rescue team, was on the mountain when a heavy mist rolled in. He too heard strange crunching noises and was overcome by a wave of panic so strong it made him flee the summit. He even reported feeling a presence trying to push him toward the edge of a cliff. Another climber, Richard Frere, wrote about his experience in 1948. He didn't see anything, but he felt an utterly abstract but intensely real presence nearby, accompanied by a strange, high-pitched singing note. This feeling of being watched, this unseen presence, became the most common part of the reports. While physical descriptions were rare, they were startlingly consistent when they did happen. A humanoid figure, impossibly tall, sometimes over 10 feet, with long limbs and dark skin or hair. But for most, the grey man was an invisible terror. Its presence felt more like a crushing weight on the soul than seen with the eyes. With so many credible people reporting similar experiences, the question has to be asked, what is going on up on Ben Macdui? Is it really home to a mysterious creature, or could there be a scientific reason for this century-old legend? The most common theory for the visual sightings is a natural optical illusion called the Brocken spectre. This happens when you're standing on a high ridge with the sun behind you and your shadow gets cast onto the mist below. Because of perspective and the way light bounces off water droplets, the shadow can look gigantic and eerily human-shaped, sometimes with a halo of light around it. The poet James Hogg even described seeing a giant blackamoor on a mountain way back in 1791, so we know people have been seeing this for a long time. A Brocken spectre could definitely explain why someone might see a giant, shadowy figure in the mist. Another scientific explanation points to infrasound, sound at a frequency so low humans can't hear it, but our bodies can feel it. These low-frequency sound waves can be created by wind whipping around the mountain's rock formations. Studies have shown that being exposed to infrasound can cause feelings of anxiety, paranoia and dread, the exact emotions nearly every witness of the Grey Man reports. Then there's the simple but powerful effect of the environment itself. Ben Macdui is a harsh and isolating place. A lone climber who's tired, maybe feeling the effects of the altitude and wrapped in a thick, sensory-depriving fog is going to be highly suggestible. The mind can play tricks. The crunch of your own footsteps echoing off rocks could easily be mistaken for something more sinister. But these explanations don't quite add up for everyone. The Brocken spectre doesn't explain the footsteps that don't match your own. While infrasound can explain the feeling of dread, it doesn't account for the specific sounds people report, and for experienced mountaineers like Collie, who know the mountain's tricks, misinterpreting natural sounds seems unlikely. The mystery, it seems, isn't so easily dismissed. You'd think that in our hyper-connected world, a legend like the Grey Man would just fade away, but the stories keep coming. The legend is alive and well, not just in books, but in the experiences of modern climbers who still venture onto the mountain. While it's harder to get named first-hand accounts these days, anecdotal stories keep popping up in online forums and social media groups. In September 2022, a guest at the nearby Mar Lodge estate wrote a chilling entry on the lodge's wildlife sightings board. Right next to the usual notes about eagles and squirrels, they wrote that they had seen a creepy grey silhouette at the peak of Ben Macdui. The lodge even shared a picture of the entry online, sparking a whole new wave of discussion. Online hiking and paranormal communities are filled with stories from people who've had weird experiences in the Cairngorms. One person described camping on the plateau and hearing two distinct male voices talking clearly in the wind, even though they were totally alone. Another told of standing outside a mountain shelter at night and catching a glimpse of a tall, grey figure out of the corner of their eye, only for it to vanish when they turned to look straight at it. These modern accounts often sound just like the classic encounters. They talk about a sudden, weird drop in temperature, a suffocating sense of dread, the feeling of being watched by something intelligent, and that unmistakable sound of footsteps where there shouldn't be any. The gear has changed. Hikers now have GPS and smartphones, but the mountain and its mysteries haven't. The Grey Man has gone from a piece of old folklore to a modern mountain legend, proving that even today, some places still hold a sense of deep and unsettling mystery. These stories, spanning more than a century, paint a consistent and chilling picture. It really does seem like something is stalking the slopes of Ben Macdui. If you enjoyed this look into one of the UK's most enduring mysteries, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more explorations into the unexplained. And now we want to hear from you. Have you ever had a strange experience in a remote place? Have you ever felt that overwhelming sense of being watched? Share your own stories in the comments below. So, what is the Grey Man of Ben Macdui? Is it a cryptid, a Scottish cousin to the Yeti or Bigfoot, guarding its territory? Is it a mountain spirit, a supernatural being tied to the ancient landscape itself? Or is it all just a perfect storm of natural phenomena, optical illusions, infrasound, and psychological stress, creating a shared experience for those who climb the misty peak? Maybe the most unsettling part of the Grey Man legend is that we just don't know. There's no definitive proof, only a long and compelling history of personal stories. The scientific explanations are plausible, but they feel incomplete. They don't quite capture the sheer terror and specific details, like the footsteps taking strides 4 times longer than a human's, that so many credible witnesses have reported. Those details linger, defying any easy answer. The legend survives because it taps into a primal fear, being alone in a vast, indifferent wilderness, only to find out you might not be alone after all. It's a story that lives in the grey area between perception and reality, between folklore and fact. What do you think is out there on the slopes of Ben Macdui? A trick of the light, a figment of a tired mind, or something else entirely? For now, the Grey Man remains hidden in the mist, a tall, shadowy question at the very top of the British Isles.